Chapter 18. Me and Howard rode our bikes up and down the mountain road all morning long. We tromped through woods, pushing away the thick shrubs, and stepped over pricker bushes. We went back to the creek behind Howard's house 3 times, calling and whistling. We peered under porches and opened sheds and circled barns. By lunchtime, the blazing summer sun overhead left pockets of melted asphalt in the road and trickles of sweat down our backs. We didn't talk much, and that was fine by me. I'd gone over and over in my head how I would say I'm sorry to Howard for what I said about his wish. But whenever I thought the time was right, my mouth went dry and my throat squeezed up, and the words I'd planned to say stayed bottled up inside. We went back to Gus and Bertha's a few times to check the traps, but the table scraps were still in the pie tin. We had lunch on Howard's front porch, sitting on the couch, eating Vienna sausages and cold pork and beans off of paper plates on our laps. Dwight and Cotton were out in the yard throwing rocks at the mailbox. They hit the metal with a loud thrum and left little dents on the sides. Mrs. Odom came out and told them to stop, and then she sat on the couch and told me not to worry. She was sure Wishbone would come back. You got to think positive, she said. Yes, ma'am, I mumbled. Did she know I said that mean thing to Howard? If she knew, I bet she wouldn't want me to be on her team anymore. That afternoon, Burl drove us into town to search parking lots and dumpsters. Dwight and Lenny made some lost dog signs, and we nailed them to telephone poles and fence posts. It was almost supper time when me and Howard rode our bikes back to Gus and Bertha's and checked the trap one more time. Then we sat in lawn chairs out by the garden and watched dragonflies flit over the tops of the marigolds. In my head, I said, Howard, I'm sorry I said that about your wish. You know, about your up-down walk? Then I said, shoot, nobody even cares about your up-down walk. But then he'd know that was a big fat lie, because he saw those kids leaving him out of their baseball games and cutting in line in front of him like he was invisible. So I sat there in silence with my thoughts spinning in my head. Maybe he didn't care about what I said. I mean, he was still being nice to me. He was helping me look for Wishbone. You sure do look forlorn, Howard said. I didn't know one other kid in the whole world who would use the word forlorn. But that was the perfect word to describe me, forlorn. Just before supper, Jackie called and told me that she went to see Scrappy in jail, and he got a tattoo. Don't you even want to know what it is? She asked when I didn't say anything. Sure. A bird, she said. A black bird in a cage, right on the back of his hand. Can you believe that? I guess. Then she rambled on about how graduating from high school wasn't all it's cracked up to be, and how much she hated her job at the Waffle House. People leave the tables all nasty with syrup, she said, and they plop their crying babies in a high chair and expect me to bring them their blueberry waffles in like a minute. She told me that her boyfriend, Arlo, wrecked his car and turned out to be a loser, and Carol Lee saw him at the mall with Darla Jacobs, she said. So I told him, adios, sucker, and then. Aren't you going to ask me about Wishbone, I said. What? I'd been telling her all about Wishbone when she called. How smart he was, and how he learned to sit and stay, and how he slept beside my bed. Wishbone, I said. My dog? Aren't you even going to ask me about him? Oh, sure, she said. How's Wishbone? Gone, I hollered. He's gone. And then I spew out this whole sorry story about how he'd run off and how he looked everywhere, but I figured he'd rather be a stray than live with me. I tried to stop, but I couldn't. I moved on to how he didn't want me to be the same as nobody else wanted me, and how I hoped she was enjoying her perfect life while I was stuck here in Colby with a bunch of squirrel-eating hillbillies. And then I hung up and sat on the floor with my back against the wall. I could see Bertha in the kitchen stirring something on the stove and pretending like she hadn't heard me. When the phone rang again, I just looked at it there in my hand. Bertha stopped stirring. Ring, ring, ring. Hello? I said in a trembling voice. Charlie? Jackie's voice floated through the telephone line, soft and sure, from Raleigh to Colby. I pictured that voice traveling from Carol Lee's fancy brick house, along highways and over treetops, and then up the winding roads and down the gravel driveways, into the little house perched on the side of the mountain, and finally getting to me, sitting on the floor and needing to hear it. "I'm sorry about Wishbone," Jackie said. "I really am. I hope he comes back." I watched a flying dart from the window screen to the lamp in the ceiling. "Charlie?" Jackie said. "What?" "I know this whole situation has been hard on you." "Situation? Is that what it was? A situation?" "I think Mama's getting better," Jackie said. "I talked to her yesterday and she sounded better." "What did that mean?" "That she got out of bed? That she got her feet on the ground? That she cared a little bit about me? That I go back to Raleigh and our broken family would suddenly disappear and its place would be a real family holding hands and saying the blessing?" "Maybe I can come visit soon," Jackie went on. "I'm going to get my driver's license in a couple of weeks. Did I tell you that? And Carol Lee got a car for graduation. Can you believe that? If I get some time off from my godforsaken job, I could come to Colby. We could go to Asheville and hang out. They have a vegan restaurant there. Did you know that? I'm thinking about becoming vegan, and I bet if She jabbered on about all the things we could do, but she left out the part about how she would go back to her perfect life, and I would still be here without my dog and wishing I hadn't been mean to Howard. That night when Gus got home, the three of us drove around looking for Wishbone. We went down to the school and over to the diner. We drove through trailer parks and alleys. While we drove, Bertha told us a story she read in the newspaper about a dog that fell out of the back of a van in North Carolina and managed to find his way back home to Indiana. "Almost 400 miles, she said. The family had been on vacation over in Maggie Valley. They can't hardly believe that." Gus was quiet, sifting a toothpick from one side of his mouth to the other while he scanned the roadside and parking lots in the woods as he drove. Every now and then he said, "Don't worry, Butterbean, we'll find him." But I was thinking that maybe now was the time to change my wish. Maybe next time I got a chance, I should wish my dog would come back. Finally, it was too dark to see much anymore, so we headed home. We turned to the driveway, and that old car bounced and squeaked over the holes. The crunch of the tires on gravel echoed in the still evening air. The headlights sent beams of light dancing through the mountain laurel and cokeberries beside the driveway. Finally, the house came into view, and I thought my heart was going to leap right out of me at what I saw. There was Wishbone, wagging his tail as he trotted towards us, dragging his leash on the ground behind him.